Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy MC Fire tapping in with another market recap. It's Wednesday, December the 11th. Things been going really smooth in the market. Uh, Not too eventful. The last couple of days, there has been a couple things that we will hit on. Well, they basically can be summarized into market is at relative highs for the Qs, and then for the SPY, we'll hop over and take a peek at that real quick. Kind of same deal. So kind of reeling back from like all-time highs at 609.07. But the reality is kind of defined uptrend, been in a defined uptrend for the entire year. There has been some pretty drastic pullbacks, but those have been really good opportunities kind of to buy the dip. So let's go take a look at the plays for today, and then we'll keep pushing. We'll start out with some of the big boys. We'll go look at the XLK and the XLC. Um, the XLK did put in a setup candle for us as of yesterday. And so that was of note, right? Really big. Those setup candles on defined uptrends, we kind of want to be tracking when those are happening and kind of staying abreast on those. Get rid of that. That's daily trend changes. So we'll get rid of these guys. I was showing somebody as an illustration. But yeah, essentially, uh, with this pullback, not as deep as we would like, but it kind of peekabooed below the support level. So if it breaks, we could see maybe some rotation here up the highs, bouncing between support and relative highs. Uh, this could start a distribution, kind of pulling back into the wave, um, but nobody really knows until it actually does end up playing out. So the XLK, also another big name, XLC, um, did put in a setup candle. It is kind of way outside 3 ATR on the weekly, left side being the weekly, and so this is good. uh, but the way I look at it is pullbacks into my moving average cloud. That's good, right? Because that's where you get to get in. You make your money on the buy. This is kind of where if you haven't already made a decision, like taking profits or whatever, you could do so. How I would set that up, if I was already in the trade or whatever, is it's at highs, right? At this point, you would have a decision point either stopping out below the low here, um, or you can make a decision right now actually because of how we're so high relative to your moving average cloud. You're outside of 3 ATR. Its ability to do so, it can, but you can see something like this, right, where it rides up outside 3 ATR and tracks sideways, for a couple of weeks to a month, while market just finds a good price stability, and then either pulls back from that, or continues higher. So I could see something like that happening, like this. It could either pull sideways or it could pull back, as the market wants to kind of take a rest, so to speak, before it continues driving higher. It's very rare do things just kind of go parabolic. But when they do, and you're in the play, it's very exciting. We do have some. We're gonna look at. We also have XCOM, which is probably the leading holding in the XLK. Excuse me, XLE. Excuse me. So a little bit. So, setup candle was printed, but really the more important thing to note is last week, XCOM went into essentially, or what I classify as a downtrend on the weekly, identified by 8 pure moving average crossing below the 21 on the weekly chart. And to note, right, because this is the most heavily weighted stock in the XLE sector, you could hop over to the XLE and have a strong argument that this might weigh it down a little bit. XLE is kind of a mixed bag. So this is definitely going to have some real bearing on the XLE as it regards to XCOM being kind of getting pushed to the downside, so to speak, trend change. The XLE hasn't trend changed as of yet, but because remember it is a basket. But if your big boy in the basket is weighing everyone down, then just something to watch out for sure. Also something to note too, right? High, relative high, excuse me, all time high, and then it likes to respect kind of this range here. So we'll go ahead and mark that for you guys. It likes to respect that, and as it's respecting this range here, we could potentially maybe see a play back to that zone in the near future. So just that's something to watch out for in this rotation. If it likes to kind of ping from here, this rotational zone, and then ping down here, it very well could come back here, and you could see kind of a similar look to what you're seeing back here. So just something to keep in mind as a potential buy bias opportunity. But there's a couple things that we want to see change. We want to see it put in a high or low pattern or a Harambe pattern at minimum. Morning star at this level, just something for us to like confirm and have confirmation to know that is what it's going to do before we just go ahead and take the play. And then of course we'll still have a plan, right? So this is what I'm talking about, guys. Seeing that it respects this level, this is back here indicated by this trend line here. You see it come up, and then our setup happens. Got a setup candle here that is in place. So it's kind of a Harambe pattern there. Very similar Harambe pattern with kind of a hammer there. We want to see it kind of repeat that same process over here. So if it does that, you'll know it. You'll hear it first, right? Also, we get to walk down our setup candle there. Not necessarily have a buy bias yet, but if it puts into this level, we definitely would want to know for sure, right? And we'll just walk down the stop or the alert there. Cool. AVGO, Broadcom. So Broadcom is in play. We are in Broadcom as of already, and pretty drastic pullback yesterday, but has since triggered the setup. So Broadcom is in already a pretty defined uptrend. Been loving it so far. We took a buy here. We took also a play here, and it is since a good position to add to our position. I'm not going to do that. I told you guys that we are doing some kind of scaling back a little bit so that we could some life things are going on over here, which is good. They're all good. Essentially, I'm moving. So shout out to the fact that we can afford to move, right? It's really really sweet. It's an exciting time, and a couple. If you're watching the channel, a couple behind the scenes lifestyle things that we can show you guys to kind of show you when we get the new place up and rolling. So I hope you guys are kind of ecstatic for that. But Broadcom, right? As a note, right? Unbalanced volume is kind of going back green. And you get nice juicy setups here and roll here with the follow on here. So if we could see some price action kind of break our invisible line here, I call it invisible line because people, when they put trend lines and support lines and sending triangles and channels, that doesn't mean the market has to respect that. It can, but you got to think the market is a combination of 1,000 people, and not everyone is looking at your invisible line and having to respect that, right? So just keep that in mind. It's good to see and be aware of, to say, hey, there might be some selling pressure, there might be some buying pressure, but not really. This is the line in the sand they won't cross or else, right? Keep that in mind. AutoZone too. So we've got a couple. We're gonna be going through a couple of these plays. AZO. A couple of these plays. So AutoZone looking very very strong. Kind of breaking setups at relative highs as well. It was at all-time highs back here, so we'll go ahead and move this up until it starts actually rotating on the weekly, right? So the new high is that 340 3416 level, and 3416.71, right, to be exact. And looking very powerful. But this is kind of what I'm talking about here, right? We put this line here, but it doesn't. A lot of people will say, "Oh, look, that's an ascending triangle." Very powerful play. It's playing out. Yes, it is. But really, what is an ascending triangle? Like, what is it? It's essentially buyers being more anxious to buy the pullback as time goes on. They're quick to go ahead and sell it up here, quick to sell it up here, quick to sell it up here at this level, but they're more anxious to buy the pullbacks. That's really all it is. It doesn't mean that they have to buy the pullback at this line. They could buy it down here. They could buy a little lower. We've seen that in the broader market, but essentially there is buying pressure. So really, it's just to remind you as a snapshot. Hey, there is buying pressure here, and in the past, historically, when there's buying pressure and resistance, it's not making inroads. You're not making lower highs necessarily. Then essentially, the sellers kind of give up, and the consensus is a prolonged buying opportunity. Sellers kind of just say, nope, buyers are stepping in, and we're going to get out of the way of this beautiful price action, right? We do have Boeing updates. Boeing updates inbound. So for the BA, nice, juicy, very, very juicy rip. We did have a buy bias on Boeing. Now keep in mind, this, granted, Boeing is still in a defined downtrend, and there's a setup here. So if there is a kind of a cross below this level, we would be a little bit more hesitant to take that necessarily as a good sign of this rip just going to the moon, right? But there is talks. I did see an article where Boeing is considering uh, dividing themselves up into smaller components to make the company more efficient. So if you know anything about Boeing, they do defense, they do aerospace, they do commercial air, right? What if all of those companies were kind of like separate companies, and Boeing itself focused primarily on one aspect of that, right? Whether it's defense or commercial air, and making it more of a lean company. If those talks come to fruition, this could really improve streamline and efficiency for Boeing, and hopefully the market kind of sees that as a really good positive. As it stands right now, price still has a say on things, so there is a rip, there is a setup in play. If there's a cross below the low of this, we could potentially look to get Boeing to the downside. I am a huge fan of Peter Lynch, so if I have a buy bias, I just buy a few shares or something, and I did do that for Boeing. Didn't have to be perfect. I just had a trade idea, and I was like, hey, let's go ahead and take a buy. So we took that buy back here of like around the week of the 9/9. And that way it just kind of stays on your radar and you get to track it, and I get to share it with you guys, so nice. We've also got a couple other things, updates on Carter and CB and Comcast, so let's get into that. All right, here we go. A really big pullback candle a couple days ago for Carter. Remember, we got in here, really juicy, nice setup candle right before earnings, and we did something that we normally don't do. Is we went on and put a butterfly kind of at where our target level was. So we were like, okay, we'll take a butterfly and we'll take our standard vertical. That's my way of like adding into the play. If you know anything about butterflies, it's a low risk, high reward opportunity, and the high reward actually ended up paying off. So in a very short time span, in our analysis, we surmised like, hey, it's in the wave, it's in the moving average cloud, excuse me, and the setup is in play. So the setup trigger happened. We went on and took the vertical, but I had the bright idea to just put a butterfly up here at relative highs, to the pivot, and it went up there almost immediately. Boom. So we got it. I think it was a shorter one, like for a week, and we closed it not the day it went up there, but the next day, which is good. So you get some more data on that butterfly, and then closed the butterfly, kept the vertical, rolled the vertical, and then rolled it again and closed it as it broke below the low of that setup candle. So Absolutely mind crushing profits on Carter there. Absolutely love that. And butterflies can be used in your arsenal, kind of targeting levels of where you think that price is more likely to move into and kind of start hovering and rotating into. Um, in this case, if you look to the left, I did note that previous setups candles over here were sustained. There was a gap into buying, so we were kind of guessing that it could gap into a zone like this and sustain itself for a couple days, allowing us an opportunity to pull the play off, and it not move too violently. So there is another setup here on Carter, but it's a relative high. Like this is kind of the sweet spot. This is right where you wanna really crank that bat, right there in the middle of the wave there, tight setup candle, get your trigger, and then you jump on it. And if you get the opportunity, sometimes they just absolutely rip, and then sometimes you get caught in a trend reversal, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just stick to your plan and keep it moving. CB, right? Setup candles there, but what you're noticing, what's the first thing we see, right? Potential trend change. So with the potential trend change, right, I'm looking more for not necessarily to buy the dip. I'm looking more to see it rip. So my if then, really, it's just my if then changes. Um, we're gonna take what the market gives us, not kind of what our gut tells us, because nothing really good comes out of your gut. And so if the trend is changing, right? Let's go back to a trend change on CB. As you can see, negative here, it went down. There's an opportunity as it pulls back into the wave or into the moving average cloud to fall through and targeting relative pivot lows there. That's kind of our entire system. So you might not get, as the trend changes here, you might not catch the initial thrust, right, off the bounce, off the support low, but catching the pullback, would you be okay with that? I think that'd be just fine, right? I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to catch every move, but I do have to catch the moves that make sense and give us the best edge. And so if the trend is going to change, let it change. Let it break down, retest, and then fail. And if you get that failure and it's within your setup, give you your edge, take that. There's plenty of opportunities in the market. So it's just something to keep in mind. We also have Comcast, Google, and Goldman Sachs. See. Boom. A little bit of the same here. Comcast, massive, massive, massive drop a couple of days ago. Trying to squeak out a recovery, not looking too good for it. So we probably will see a trend change there on Comcast. But this is still good because if you want to be a long-term buyer in something like Comcast, well, buying the dip is pretty sweet. So just keep that in mind. Good old Goldman. We're gonna zoom in here. Look in the stratosphere. The setup on Goldman, it is in the stratosphere, kind of at the roof already. So going up higher might be a little rough, but it is still there. So I'm gonna caution everyone. This is at 3 ATR and pullbacks from high setups kind of lose a little bit more edge. We want to kind of get things in the sweet spot down here in the wave, right? This test of these levels down here correspond to buying opportunities for you as it breaks, buying opportunities here as it breaks. Nice juicy rips. So that's kind of why waiting for it to get into the real sweet strike zone. You don't have to swing at it when it's at high. So that's probably the biggest mental part of this game is just waiting for your setup. There's no three strikes you're out. No one's gonna come and rip your computer screen off the wall, even though they should. If you're not keeping to your plan, that's a conversation for another day. We'll take a look at Google, and then we'll take a look at IRM. Uh, Google, juicy rip, man, absolutely massive. That's kind of why we waited for like today, is because the setups are there, some of them, but the reality is we didn't take this because the edge is not necessarily there, But in name brands, I do tend to give it a little bit more leeway, right? Like Teslas, Broadcoms, Googles. You're looking at Nvidia. The name brands, I will give it a little bit more leeway because it is a name brand, a blue chip. But outside of it being a blue chip, you kind of stick to your rules. That's kind of my best bet, right? What do I mean by that? This candle right here is a clean setup. We did call that out, but there's no necessarily trigger within the time frame that I like. So yeah, it's up here, and at 175.35, yeah, it could, but it took like how many days to break? So now that it broke, right, then you get this fat rip, which is really good. What's crazy is right, it's still in play because these guys like didn't get any play at all, right? So the setup is to the downside. The people stepped in here on the downside. They almost immediately went negative, right? But it just took a while. It took a fat juicy while. So something to keep in mind is in the stratosphere. Did have a trend change on Goog slash Google. Go ahead and put that, mark that out for you. Trend change. So we're looking for buying opportunities if you didn't already pick that up from the moving average cloud. And yeah, one of my faves though, Juicy IRM throwing a setup candle. Love to see it at support. So if we get some play here, would love to kind of lock in a buy here for that. Not really liking though the fact that yeah, it's coming in support and it's made a lower high, right? I would have loved to see the high be relative to the last pivot. So we're just gonna kind of watch it. We will take a play, but we'll if it pops, if it gives us a trigger, but we'll keep that stop like really tight. Because if it crosses below that, maybe there's some rotation, some more pullback, or we could even get peekabooed. But we just want to be cognizant that that's what's going on. Sweet. So I told you guys for this one NVTS, we've been watching it. Something that I just kind of keep my eye on. I did note that I told you guys I have a buy bias. It is in a downtrend, but it has since changed to an uptrend. So we're looking for a little bit of buying the dip action, right? That's kind of what we want. A little bit more of a dip though. Typically don't like to be a buyer at 3 ATR. Like to be a buyer a little bit more towards the moving average cloud. But the trend has changed, and that's really good for our buy bias. So that's we love to see it honestly. um, we, Buy biases I don't necessarily I haven't had good practice with, but at relative lows, if you find value in a company, you like what they do, then have a bias and take a trade according to that bias, but make sure you have a plan. Okay, this is a cheapie, and we're willing to kind of hold and see what happens. Moving on. So this is kind of one of the ones I told you guys about OMC. Really nice pullback a couple days ago. Uh, it isn't a uptrend still. It probably won't stay in there for long. There is an opportunity if let's say it gets above this level. Now, this is a theory that I have. The setup is here, so instead of it breaking the highs all the way to absolute highs, I want to know if it gets to around 50%. I think 50% is about the part where if it's if there's going to be pullback into this candle into this setup and then fail, it'll be in the top third of the 50%. If it breaks the 50% level, then you could see potentially a gap fill. That's kind of the thinking. I want to see potentially a gap fill. That would be the trade idea. I would want to see some confirmation on that. PEG. Sweet. So uptrend, very nice uptrend. Earnings play 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So you could have took this play right here, Got a nice gap blowout candle right there. Would have crushed it. Uh, kind of our home run. Kind of set up here. You would have took a nice triple there on the blowout if you would have got out or made a decision at 49.71. And would have been in after post earnings, so not worried about vol crush necessarily, but set up accordingly. We got to look at the Greeks. So your entry would be 43.84 at break, and then decision at 49.71 at close. And it closes relative high too, so that's good. But looking nice barcoding here with higher lows being put in at these levels. So really good stuff there. Just keep that in mind for PRG. Now for PEG. Setup here as well. Looking very juicy. It's kind of very similar deal to PRG. Not to get them confused. Earnings 1, 2, 3. A couple days later, boom, took that absolute rip. Blowout candle even right here at 93 with a great opportunity to run the bag off and make a decision. You got an 87, right, almost smack dab at 87, like 87.12 ish. For the play potentially to the upside on break. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, awesome. It is in a very, very clean uptrend. It's been in that clean uptrend for a while. Deep pullback though, but no threat of kind of going into a downtrend as of late. In the pullback was pretty massive with the gap and the earnings. So you could have took that post earnings play and seen some nice profits. That's that candle right there is this setup right here. So keep that in mind. Well, we got peekabooed on that stop out for PEG. So looking for some give back if it'll allow us. You know they say don't revenge trade though. But if the setup's there, take it. It is what it is. Take the emotions out of it. PH, and then we'll go look at SCHD. Sweet. Very similar story. Strong uptrend for Parker, and then break a high of that candle. We have our alert there, the 691.56, looking to be necessarily a buyer. But the problem, as you guys probably already, if you guys already can probably already good. Where is it at relative to 3 ATR? Really high. So the stock's really extended. This gap could potentially see more failure. Maybe potentially to close the gap. So it kind of barcodes up here, going rotational between pivot high, pivot low, all-time high, and then pivot low. That could be filled, right? Or at least halfway filled. So watch out for that on PH. And then if it throws a setup there, a lot better opportunity. We want to make our money on the buy. Let's go to SCHD. Yep, setup's still there. We're gonna give SCHD a couple days. We do like this. This is kind of where our sweet spot is. We want to kind of be a buyer in the way we have been a long-term holder of SCHD, and actually recently took a little off the table up here. So we let a little bit go, keep it to our setup. We wanted to just what's going on. Wanted to pull from a very good established uptrend and long-term position, and then might get back in on the pullback. TMUS is next. Yep, very nice. To breaking that level, so maybe we get a potential play on the T-Mobile there. But massive selling a couple days ago, and then a little bit more edge to our setup negatively. But I guess buyers are stepping in on T-Mobile in the strong uptrend. You got to think T-Mobile is also in the XLC, which is it's like relative outperformer to everything else in the S&P 500. So it's looking really good. So this could be a play that we could want to get into. Yeah, it is at 3 ATR, but the wave is there, and there is a lot of negative pressure. So we just want to keep that in mind. Hopefully it breaks today. If it doesn't, we'll just cross our fingers and see what happens. So last but not least, let's see, United Health. Yeah, so barring the recent news of the passing of the CEO, again, heartfelt condolences to his family. Uh, and understanding that it's really a tragedy that even though we live in a modern world, please take care of yourselves, take care of your family, and just be aware of your surroundings, right? You never really know when it's your time, so um, just make sure with this stuff. I'll take this point is to, hey, make sure you have your affairs in order and your beneficiaries and all this stuff, because you never know, man. It's something that we don't really think about in our days today's that today might be the last day, and so all that's news about this has been kind of flooded. Has been flooding the um, financial markets when in reference to the stock. I think a couple news outlets are actually running stories uh, about this, and there's a lot of new developments. We're not going to talk about the assailant, but what we will is, and from a learning perspective, we want to see how the market reacts to stuff like this, how the company reacts to stuff like this. Be cognizant of the news. So, yeah, did the fundamentals change because of the impact? So there is a lot of heavy speculation to the downside as it stands right now. Gonna be watching that, but as since and this is kind of what I'm talking about, is you see a push, major push, pull back into the upper half to 1/3, doesn't break that 2/3 mark, it pulls back into it, and then there's continuation breaking that pivot low. So it kind of follow on, kind of continuation. The deeper in the pullback of a major move, like a major push, the higher the opportunity, the higher chance that it will not follow on and continue on the momentum. It'll peter out or test pivot, but won't break it, and that's kind of the point. So, guys, thank you so very much for your time. Keep trading, keep grinding, and stay encouraged, man. These are some good times, and you just got to weather some bad ones. So, thank you guys so very much. We'll tap in with you guys soon, and have a good day, and goodbye.